Ye anila premadana karuna pracho Ye anila premadana karuna prajo Eno Prabhu Kotagela Acharya Thakura Eno Prabhu Kotagela Acharya Thakura Kahamara Swarupa Kaha Sanatan Kahadasa Raghunatha Patita Pavan Kahamara Bhatta Yuga Kaha Kavira Kale kota gela goranatara Ashane gotiba mata anale pashiba Goranga gunera nidhi kota gelepabo Sesaba sangira sanghe ye koilo vilas Sangana paya kande narotamada Ye anila premadana karuna prato Anila premadana karuna pracho Ena Prabhu Kota Gela Chaya Thakur. Ena Prabhu Kota Gela Acharya Thakur. Ashtotra Shadashish Madhusvahan Grace Sri Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajagacharya Ashtotra Shadashish Madhusvahan Grace Sri Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakura Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Shri Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Sikhaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakti Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Sham Kund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Navadvip Dham Ki Jai Ganga Yamuna Mai Ki Jai Tulsi Maharani Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to His Divine Grace, the Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakura Prabhupada Ki Jai. If you just walk up the stairs and you look up, left, there's some hooks there. The books are there. So read the translation. He who brought the treasure of divine love and who was filled with compassion and mercy, where has such a personality as Srinivasacharya gone? Where are my Swarup Damodar and Rupa Goswami? Where is Sanatan? Where is Raghunath Das, the savior of the fallen? Where are my Raghunath Bhatta and Gopal Bhatta? And where is Krishnadas Kaviraj? Where did Lord Gauranga, the great dancer, suddenly go? I will smash my head against a rock and enter into fire. Where will I find Lord Gauranga, the reservoir of all wonderful qualities? Being unable to obtain the association of Lord Gauranga, accompanied by all of these devotees in whose association he performed his pastimes, Narottam Das simply weeps. Looks like he's a little confused. You know that those hooks where Damodar Kumar Prabhu hangs his cloth sometimes? It's the Chaitanya Charitamrita, but I think he's just confused because All right, thank you. He went on a hunt upstairs. All right. Yep. So today is the disappearance of His Divine Grace, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakura, Prabhupada, and thought we could start by reading a verse from the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. This is Adi Lila, Chapter 1, Text 59, and the chapter is entitled The Spiritual Masters. Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Okay. So if everybody could please repeat after me. Tato Du Sangam Utsujya Satsu Sajeta Buddhiman Santa Devasya Chindanti Manovyasangam uktibihi tadodu sangamutsrija satsu sajjeti buddhiman santa evasya chindanti manovyasangamuktibi tadoduk sangamutsrija satsu sajjeti buddhiman santa evasya chindanti manovyasangamuktibihi tatoduk sangamutsrija satsu sajjeti buddhiman santa evasya chindanti manovyasangamuktibi. Tataha. Therefore, Duk Sangam, bad association, Utsrija, giving up, Satsu, with the devotees, Sajjeta, one should associate, Buddhiman, an intelligent person, Santaha, devotees, Eva, certainly, Asya, ones, Chindanti, cut off, Mana Vyasangam, opposing attachments, Uktibihi, by their instructions. Translation and commentary by His Divine Grace, HG Bhaktisiddhanta Swami Prabhupada. One should therefore avoid bad company and associate only with devotees. With their realized instructions, such saints can cut the knot connecting one with activities unfavorable to devotional service. Purport. This verse, which appears in Srimad Bhagavatam 11:26-26, was spoken by Lord Krishna to Uddhava in the text known as the Uddhava Gita. The discussion relates to the story of Pururava and the heavenly courtesan Urvashi. When Urvashi left Pururava, he was deeply affected by the separation and had to learn to overcome his grief. It is indicated that to learn the transcendental science, it is imperative that one avoid the company of undesirable persons and always seek the company of saints and sages who are able to impart lessons of transcendental knowledge. The potent words of such realized souls penetrate the heart, thereby eradicating all misgivings accumulated through years of undesirable association. For a neophyte devotee, there are two kinds of persons whose association is undesirable. One, gross materialists who constantly engage in sense gratification, and two, unbelievers who do not serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but serve their senses and their mental whims in terms of their speculative habits. Intelligent persons seeking transcendental realization should very scrupulously avoid their company. Om Gyanatipidandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshuvanamalitammena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukam Kritavachalam Pangam Langate Gadimya Kapitapaham Vande Shri Gurundiritanam Vanchal Kapadiribishcha Kipasinabhevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasudeva Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Okay, so translation again. One should therefore avoid bad company and associate only with devotees. With their realized instructions, such saints can cut the knot connecting one with activities unfavorable to devotional service. So, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakura, whose disappearance is today, of course, people wonder sometimes why you're celebrating somebody's disappearance, but as Srila Prabhupada explained, that the appearance of a great personality is like the rising of the sun, and the disappearance is like the setting of the sun. So it's also beautiful. And it's a day in which is celebrated with the purpose of glorifying that personality for what they've done, and the life that they led, and the example they set for everybody. So this particular verse that we just read, it's describing how the devotees, Srila Prabhupada translates, saints, they cut the knot, or they cut the attachments within the mind of those who they're speaking to. Now, of course, there has to be, generally speaking, some receptivity, at least to some degree, for the process to work. Like, for example, when people travel on an airplane, sometimes you sit by somebody and they're just, busy spacing out and whatever, eating beef and, watching all types of nonsense movies or whatever, and they could care less, like, how you're looking and what you're reading as a bhakti practitioner. It just doesn't, like. Whereas some people that kind of like look over and they're a little bit more receptive, and they start asking a bunch of questions, and then you give them a book, which devotees should have when they're traveling, books, because you meet people. Like on the way to Turkey, I met this guy from Turkey, and he was asking me a bunch of questions, like hours. We were speaking for hours, and I gave him a book, and anyways. So there has to be some receptivity, generally speaking. Now, of course, the association of devotees is very powerful, and even for people who may not be receptive, still, they could penetrate. But the more receptive, the better. But here, it reminds me of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakura, because he would engage what he called, or is what Srila Prabhupada termed it as, the chopping technique, which means he would speak very strongly against anything, against anything and everything not relating to Krishna consciousness. And he would also teach his disciples to do the same thing. For example, there was one brahmachari of his, and he was out preaching, and this brahmachari in a public forum, he criticized by name a particular guru, or so-called guru, of the time, who was very popular. And the crowd became very upset. They became angry. And it was actually in the Bhaktisiddhanta Vaibhava, that book by Bhaktivinoda Swami, it was actually, because sometimes in certain countries and certain places, like for example, Jayapataka Swami, while he was in an airport, it was in South America, I believe, some crazy bhakta lost his mind. He attacked Jayapataka Swami and he stabbed him, right? Spain, yeah. It was in Spain. So he stabbed him right here, trying to kill him. I'm not sure what happened to that person, but I guess he went to jail for some time. Or oh yeah, Sanskrit scholar tackled him. Oh, martial artist. Okay, good. It's good to know martial arts, right, sometimes. But some devotees were telling me that if that would have happened in India, that they would have, who knows, what they would have done with them. With the idea of protecting their spiritual master, close to kill him maybe. So here, while this brahmachari was speaking, criticizing this person, there's like a mob of like people wanting to attack this brahmachari. And they had to kind of leave. Anyways, it's a whole story. But they came back to the ashram. Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakura was there, and some brahmacharis were saying, "Oh, this brahmachari, he was this is what he did, and he caused a lot of problems for us." And then they were thinking that Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakura was going to chide him, chastise him, tell him not to do that. But interesting enough, Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakura said, "Oh, very good. It's very good you did that." So he appreciated and he himself, and he also trained his disciples to speak the truth, to call a spade, to not water things down just for the pleasure of the public. And it was he was so, in some people's eyes, outspoken, that there's actually people who wanted to kill him. Like while he was in, exactly what place he was. He was preaching somewhere in India, and the police came to him and said, "Yeah, I was in Vrindavan." I think it was that time where he was, because at the particular time, there's an idea, and there still is an idea, that in order to be a priest, in order to be a brahmin, in order to worship the deities, in order to be a guru or a Goswami, one has to be born in the family of brahmins or qualified persons. And if you're not, you can't be a priest, you can't be a brahmin, you can't be in charge of a temple, nothing. So Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakura, in this particular meeting with these brahmins, he started to, and I believe it's this particular case, if it's another case, but anyways, this did happen, where he was glorifying through the scripture the brahmins, right? Namo Brahmanya Devaya, Go Brahmanitaya Cha Jagaritaya Krishna, Govindaya Namo Namaha. And so many shlokas he was chanting, glorifying the brahmins. So the brahmins, of course, were feeling, wow, great. And then he started quoting all these verses from the scripture describing how those who are not born in Brahmin families, they could also become Brahmins, they could become priests, they become devotees. And then they didn't like that. So whether it was that meeting or another meeting, they became very upset with his preaching, angry. I mean, to the point they wanted to kill him. I mean, what kind of Brahmins are those? They wanted to kill him. And so the police, they came to Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakura and they said, Maharaj, we have these, to tell you the truth, there's people and they're trying to bribe us to kill you. So, but you're a saintly person and we don't do that. We're not going to do that. So, but we're just telling you that this is what's happening. So, so yeah, they really didn't like. I mean, just like in the case of any great personality who's preaching truth, just like in the case of Jesus Christ. I mean, what they want to do? They crucified, right? So to be a devotee or to be a follower of Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakura, or be a follower of Srila Prabhupada, it means that some people will love us, but also some people will hate us. So if we joined a movement in which we want everybody to love us, we join the wrong movement, because it's not the movement in which it's a movement in which some people are going to hate us naturally. And it's not a movement that's politically correct. It just can't be. If you read Srila Prabhupada's books, they're not politically correct. And they're never going to be, unless somebody heavily edits them, and changes everything. And just for that alone, a movement that's not politically correct means people are going to hate it. So that's something to remember. That a politically correct ISKCON doesn't exist, and it's never going to exist. And if people want to make it politically correct, then maybe they should try to start their own movement. Probably be a lot easier, because if people just do a little research into Srila Prabhupada's books, I mean, they're not politically correct. In other words, they'll make people angry. Just like, for example, I remember we're out distributing books in shop to shop in Chula Vista, which is a predominantly Spanish-speaking neighborhood. Brigupati Prabhu, and he used to visit here more often. Somehow he hasn't visited so much. Maybe we could try to get him down here, but he used to like going to those places. So I gave a book to some, I went to some, what do they call it, Mexican food place? Taco shop, yeah, thank you. Politically correct term, taco shop. Sorry. I went to a shop there, and I didn't order anything. I promise. I don't do that, but I went to distribute a book to the worker there, and she was very nice. She took a book, she gave a good donation, and invited her to the temple, and she came to the temple. And I think she came once or twice to the temple. But I don't know if I saw her later on in that area, or I think I just saw her at the temple and I was speaking with her. And she said, "Oh yeah, I don't really like what's in the books." And I said, "Oh yeah, what don't you like?" And she said, "I don't like how he's referring to people who aren't interested in the absolute truth, who aren't interested in God consciousness, who are just eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. He's equating them to be like animals." I said, "I don't like that." So I said, "All right, well, what can I say? You don't like it, you don't like it." I mean, I tried to explain a little bit more, but yeah. And there's many people like that's one point within the books, within Srila Prabhupada's books, that people may not like. So, but the truth has to be broadcasted loudly all over the world, through microphones, through the medium of social media, through the media of movies, through the media of one-on-one conversation, through the media of books, right? Transcendental books. It has to be broadcasted all over the world. Just like Srila Prabhupada was when he was in his last days in 1977. He told Tamal Krishna Goswami, said that people are thinking, "Oh, when is this old man going to die?" But he said, they don't know that I'm still here beating the Brihat Mridanga. Means I'm still here translating my books, and they're being distributed. So the truth has to be broadcasted, and real intelligence means to be interested in doing that, supporting it in some fashion, form or shape, right? So Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakura, he was very, very interested in doing that. And that was the purpose of his temples. Of course, Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakura established deities. And devotees were worshipping deities. And devotees were cooking for the deities. And devotees were doing so many different activities. But the main purpose of keeping the temple clean, keeping the deities nicely worshipped, of course, for the pleasure of Krishna. But all of these activities are for the glorification of Krishna. So that when people come, they don't come to a pig sty. I was like, oh man, these people are filthy. They're like a bunch of, man, they're saying not to be like animals in the books, but man, these guys are like, you know. But Prabhupada said, revolution of cleanliness, that it's clean. And people, if they're too gross to see that, if they're too gross not to notice, because anybody who has some culture, some mode of goodness, they'll notice when something's dirty. I mean, and it's not that just devotees are people who are cultured people, refined people. I mean, means that people do have some sattva gun going on sometimes. So those people, they'll notice when something's clean, when something's dirty. And it's very unattractive when something's dirty for anybody who has some little goodness going on. So the purpose of keeping things clean, the purpose of deity worship. Again, if people are so gross they can't notice, it has subtle spiritual effects, how the deities are worshipped. Like, for example, of course we have a camera that's broadcasting everything nowadays, and we also have cameras, you know, what is it called? On the altar, right? On the altar. Janardhan's Facebook, where he's posting pictures every day of the deities. Now, let's just say we didn't have that Facebook. Let's just say we didn't have this YouTube broadcasting right now. If the congregation came by once a week, which most of them do, and they see our deities nicely dressed with nice garlands, now how do they know whether we dress them once a week, or how do they know or whether we fed them once a week this week? How do they know? Provided without these media forms. The deities become more beautiful when the devotees worship them with love and devotion. That's stated in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, this idea that Krishna, the gopis, their devotion is enhancing the beauty of Krishna and vice versa. I asked Tirthamaraj one time about how, I was commenting on how beautiful the deities in Vrindavan were. We were doing parikrama to different temples, and he said, it's because the devotees love them so much. So love and devotion is manifested by service, how much we're serving the deities, how nicely we're serving the deities, and that will be shown by how beautiful the deities are actually. So in other words, people, whether they know, whether they don't know, it has an effect on them. The cleanliness, the deity standards, the prasadam. So all of this is meant to attract people to Krishna more and more and more. And Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakura, he was very, very interested in this. Therefore, he established 64 mutts all over India with this purpose in cities, busy cities. And Srila Prabhupada, following him, did the same. So, because it's the disappearance, I thought we would read, because maybe, I'm sure some devotees haven't heard this, and even if they have, it's very beautiful. But This is a poem written by Srila Prabhupada, or Srila Prabhupada, glorifying Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakura. So here it is. I'll just read the English. So please try to... Oh, Srila Prabhupada. So our Srila Prabhupada is speaking to his spiritual master, addressing him as Srila Prabhupada, Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakura, Prabhupada. Oh, Srila Prabhupada, you personally suffered to see the suffering of the fallen conditioned souls. On this anniversary of your separation, I feel utterly despondent. So this is how Srila Prabhupada's feeling on the disappearance of his spiritual master. So it's also important to... The ocean of mercy was previously dammed up, but Lord Nityananda himself cut open a channel, thereby releasing an outpouring flood of pure ecstatic love of God. Those devotees to whom the responsibility was given to continue spreading this flood of love somehow became overpowered by Maya and were reduced simply to performing ritualistic Hindu ceremonies for the benefit of materialists. Lord Nityananda's inundation of prema was thus obstructed by those known as Jati Gosai or caste Goswamis, but then you personally came, O Master, to open wide the floodgates once again. Again you engulfed everyone in the deluge of pure divine love, even such a low, wretched, fallen, and sinful soul as me. On the strength of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's command, you sent out all your servants as spiritual masters from door to door, just to deliver the fallen souls. The devotees were preaching everywhere, from the oceans to the Himalayas. So it's like all over India. But now that you are gone from our midst, there is only darkness everywhere. O Srila Prabhupada, you personally suffer to see the suffering of the fallen conditioned souls. On this day of your separation, I am utterly despondent. Just as Advaita Prabhu fervently prayed and thus induced Sri Gauranga to descend, your father, Bhaktivinoda Thakura, prayed for you to incarnate. Because of Srila Bhaktivinoda's ardent desire, O Master, you came and proclaimed to everyone that India is the holy land of the Lord's divine pastimes. One who has taken his birth as a human being in the land of India should make his life successful and work for the benefit of all people, all other people. Everywhere you went, you boldly preached this great message of Lord Chaitanya, but now in your absence, O Master, everything has fallen into darkness. The overflowing ocean of your compassion has once again become dammed up. Seeing this, my heart has been pierced by the sharp spear of grief. Without Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's message being spread, there is confusion and upheaval everywhere. Seeing this, all Vaishnavas feel overwhelmed in the pangs of your separation. The spirit souls have once again been captured by Maya and covered by the darkness of ignorance. Desperately seeking relief, they are simply perishing in a fathomless ocean of anxiety. O Srila Prabhupada, you personally suffered to see the suffering of the fallen conditioned souls. On this day of your separation, I am utterly despondent. You instructed everyone you met to chant Lord Krishna's holy name. You showed the example by continuously reciting the Maha Mantra into everyone's ears. That's nice. You empowered everyone with the further qualification to distribute that holy name. But now, by the influence of Maya, there is only darkness everywhere. The souls truly attached to worshiping the Lord always sing and dance in joyful Sankirtan. Fallen in the footsteps of their spiritual master, they delivered the whole world. But those with no such qualification perform Nirjan Bhajan, so-called confidential worship in a solitary place. Thus, acting whimsically, all of them actually remain absorbed in personal sense gratification. An ordinary soul should never imitate, so this is from the Bhagavatam 10:33-30. An ordinary soul should never imitate the activities of the Supreme Lord, even in his mind. For those indulging in such imitation, the teachings of pure devotional service are all spoiled. You preach that utility is the principle. One should act with detachment, while using appropriate things procured by modest means in the Lord's service. In such detached devotional service of Lord Krishna, each and every house would become a temple. But these days, wherever one looks, the exact opposite is evident. O Srila Prabhupada, you personally suffered to see the suffering of the fallen conditioned souls. On this day of your separation, I am utterly despondent. Everything regarding material prosperity and mystic perfection was fully present in your transcendental message when you said, because the residents of Vraj have life, therefore they engage in preaching work. The resolute intelligence explained by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti, 241 purport of Bhagavad Gita, is now spoiled, since your disciples have become ensnared in the bewildering noose of Maya. Those who are irresolute in performing devotional service as you instructed have divided your mission into many factions. The tigress of ambition for material name and fame appeared and personally provoked this upheaval. The central purport of your message obviously did not enter their ears. Oh, where will I get the strength myself to perform this Harinam Sankirtan? To chant the Lord's holy name is the command of my worshipful spiritual master. I do not think it is right to disregard that order. Your greatest distinction is that you expanded the topmost religious culture. Anyone accepting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra from you becomes spiritually qualified. Okay, we just have some more. If all those who attain this qualification were to go out and make disciples, then the miserable conditioned souls would be delivered from the world of birth and death. O Srila Prabhupada, you personally suffered to see the suffering of the fallen conditioned souls. On this day of your separation, I'm utterly despondent. The greatest mantra of all, consisting of 32 syllables, is Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Those controlled by foolishness refuse to chant. Your so-called disciple, the jackal, named Ananta Vasudev, disobeyed your final instruction to keep the mission united and thereby created a scandalous fiasco, the result of which is evident to this day, as imitative Prakriti Sahajas are being worshipped as gurus in your temples. Is there a single temple to be found where your instructions are still followed? As it is said, Punor Mushiko Bhava, everyone has again become a mouse. The lion's cub has been stolen away by the deceptive tricks of the jackal. Now everyone caught in Maya's mighty clutches is reduced to weeping. O Master, if you are merciful to us once again, then even though we are trapped here on the shore of the ocean of death, we will finally behold a change for the better. Then once again we can blissfully meditate on the holy name of Krishna and once again have firm faith in your Vaikuntha messages. Once again the pure holy name of Krishna will make us dance. Then all the confusion caused by Maya will be automatically dispelled. O Srila Prabhupada, you personally suffered the suffering of the fallen, to see the suffering of the fallen conditioned souls on this day of your separation. I am utterly despondent. So, continues for some time. And we'll read the last one here. Lord Chaitanya's method of devotional service is not performed by solitary worship. You stress this point again and again when training your disciples. You explain to us all that our preaching method is in the mood of Lord Chaitanya when he showed mercy to deliver the rascals Jaga and Madai. The world has now filled up with many Jagas and Madais to deliver. Everyone is anxiously awaiting the arrival of Chaitanya Nitai's mercy. If, at such times as these, you were personally to return to this world, once more chanting the holy names and preaching in the same merciful mood of the Lord, and if there were enthusiastic preaching activities again taking place in every direction, then all the people, as before, would be stirred up in blissful excitement. Your profound roaring would cause demons and atheists to flee, and your narrations of Lord Chaitanya's message would fill the hearts of sincere souls. Again, the whole world would be excitedly bustling with good tidings. But now, in your absence, everyone is mourning the loss of the most precious treasure. O Srila Prabhupada, you personally suffer to see the suffering of the fallen conditioned souls. On this day of your separation, I am utterly despondent. O Master, in your absence, my heart is broken. Abai is hereby revealing only a small glimpse of his wretched sorrow and separation. Dina Hina Kangala Shri Abai Charana Bhaktivedanta. So that was Srila Prabhupada's addressing his spiritual master on Disappearance Day. So, it's a long history, but Srila Prabhupada was, anyways, I'm sure you've heard what he was saying, but it's this desire of Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakura was firmly situated in Srila Prabhupada's heart. And that propelled him to come to America and to spread Krishna consciousness all over the world. So it's coming from Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakura. So we should be very appreciative of him and grateful. And to try to know more about him. There's a huge book. It's like 3 volumes, Bhaktisiddhanta Vaibhava. I mean, it's a wonderful book. I don't know how long Bhakti Vikas Swami took to do that. What, 10 years, something? A lot of research, a lot of study. The words are quite lofty. I mean, you're going to have to... In the back of the book, he's... he purposely did that because Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakura would speak in such lofty language. But in the back of the books of the Bhaktisiddhanta Vaibhava, there's glossary, which explains definition of these particular words. Or if you have a Kindle or something like that, you just press on the word and then it comes up in the dictionary. But it's a very inspiring, beautiful, wonderful book. And devotees should read it. I mean, Bhakti Vikas Swami put a lot of energy into it, so it's good. I said Bhakti Vikas Swami, he put a lot of energy into it, so it's good if devotees reciprocate and read it. And it's about Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakura. His Holiness Giraj Swami said he was very appreciative of that book, and he said that he felt he had a relationship with Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakura since joining ISKCON, Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakura being his grand spiritual master. But he said that after he read Bhaktisiddhanta Vaibhava, he said that he really felt like he knew Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakura after that. So it's a great book. And also, today is a great day to meditate, to pray to worship Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakura. And Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakura, he was very happy. It says that when the brahmacharis would go out, they would come back and they would report to him, right? Or he would hear the Sankirtan's course. And he said that it is recorded that he was very happy when devotees, even if they distribute just one, periodical, because they would produce these magazines, these newspapers about Krishna, and books. So he was very happy. So what to speak of devotees are distributing, right, dozens and dozens and dozens of books. So it's a great day to do that, and mercy will be flowing very easily, provided we just, like fine-tune our conscience a little bit. So, okay, does anybody have any questions?
Hare Krishna.
Yes, you could ask, or comments.
Yes, Prabhu, I'm sorry, but I need to ask the following. The two names are very similar, Govardhan Prabhu and Balaram Prabhu. You are Balaram Prabhu, no?
Yes.
Okay, Balaram Prabhu, thank you very much.
But Govardhan's like my brother, so.
Yeah.
Anyways, yes.
Thank you. So, in relation to the Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Pranati, the last quote tells us that he was there not tolerating any kind of declaration against the teachings of Srila Rupa Goswami. So my question is it that you know any episode related to where I would find Bhaktisiddhanta exercising this intolerance against being offensive against the teachings of Srila Rupa Goswami, a specific episode?
a specific episode. Okay. Well, in that book, Bhaktisiddhanta Vaibhava, there's that time where actually Bhaktivinoda Thakura was scheduled to go to speak with these brahmins, because the idea was to prove that anybody could be a Brahmin provided they're educated and trained and initiated. And in other words, anybody could become a devotee, anybody could worship the deity, right? Qualified person could worship the deity, not just people born in Brahmin families, which this is one of the, I think, 12 groups? The Upasampradayas. Means they're claiming to be followers of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, but they have some philosophical misconceptions, and a lot of the times they don't follow certain principles and so on. But one of the groups are these caste Brahmins, means people born in Brahmin families who, most of them, very materialistic, and they have this understanding that only you have to be born in a Brahmin family in order to worship the deities. So, anyways, Bhaktivinoda Thakura was supposed to go to a meeting to discuss with them. You could say like a debate, but he wasn't well. He was experiencing some sickness. So he sent Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakura. And Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakura, again, he was glorifying the Brahmins, and then he was with Vedic scriptures, quotations, and then explaining how one can be initiated as a Brahmin and worship the deity, even though not born in a Brahmin family. So that was a time where he was specifically, you could say, challenging or debating this, one of the upper sampradayas.
Yes, Prabhu. Thank you very much. Yeah. Oh, go on, yes?
Oh, yeah, and this is in the Vaibhava book. So there's that case and some other cases. Or, for example, he was in Jagannatha Puri, and there was one devotee or some upper sampradaya person claiming to be a guru, but he concocted his own mantra, Bhaja Radhe Sham, Hare Krishna, Hare Ram, something like that. And they still chant it. There's chanting in Vrindavan still. It's interesting. And the chanting in Jagannath Puri, probably still. I think they're doing it at Haridas Thakur's. Anyways. So, but Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakura, he was publicly criticizing this person in his classes, although he's really famous, this person. And he was actually sending devotees door to door. I think he may have been going door to door and telling people how this is wrong. He shouldn't be concocting. Because mantras, they come in a disciplic succession. You can't concoct. Like, it's not that we're just going to sit here today and, all right, let's have some fun. Let's concoct a mantra, with Ram's name and, just kind of concoct mantras. So that's another case within the Vaibhava book. So.
Yes, Prabhu, thank you very much. Wonderful answers to my question. Hare Krishna.
All right, Hare Krishna. Thank you. All right, any other?
I may be wrong about this because I'm not as familiar as you, but it was, I think, was it Bhaktisiddhanta who stepped forward to offer to go, rather than Bhaktivinoda Thakura saying, you go?
I'm not sure. We have to look into that.
Because he was praying, will no one, come and do and do this? Bhaktisiddhanta.
Okay,
he did, right?
Stepped forward.
He did, yeah. And the other one was, oh, now it slipped my mind. Anyway, there's that.
I think Ramapati has something.
There are a few stories that I remember. That once Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakura sent his disciples to go collect in the neighboring areas, and they all came back. They're all fighting and arguing. And Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakura came down, and he said, I have made all the beggars to king. So that's why it's my fault actually that you're all fighting. So, and he's just trying to teach them. And there another instance was he was traveling from Calcutta to Jagannatha Puri or somewhere, Madras, yeah. And there was one guy who was profound in a Maya, but they say, oh, everything is all one. So Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur, the disciples are carrying some mango. Say, pull out the rotten one, just the worst one. And he brought it out, and he was trying to force him to eat. See, if it's all one, good mango, rotten mango, if they're all one. So finally, he preached to him and accepted that. And there's another one was, he sent out his disciple to beg. Usually they beg rice and sabji and all that. And there was an old lady, she didn't have anything to offer. She had some ashes from cow dung and wood. Usually they use for washing the pots. They don't have soap. Years back they didn't have all this chemical soap and all that. They use ashes from. So she offered, and this devotee refused. He said, well, why do you offer this? So he went back to the temple, and Bhaktisiddhanta asked him, so what did you collect today? He says, well, I collected this, and somebody offered, and he said, this I didn't take it. Bhaktisiddhanta chastised him. He said, go back and go. She's offering some service to advance in spiritual life, you should accept.
Nice.
Haribo?
It's off. It's off.
Yeah, now it's on. You were maybe going to say the same thing. I don't know, you may have mentioned it, but it's worth emphasizing that episode where Prabhupada was visiting Bhaktisiddhanta at Radhakund. It was on Parakram, and he had his little son with him. And that's where Bhaktisiddhanta said to Prabhupada, if you ever get money, print books. And that became a central fact of Srila Prabhupada's preaching. When he was always doing it in India. He started the magazine. He started the Back to Godhead magazine himself because he wanted to preach in English, so he's writing it in English. And then he continued it even in America as soon as he could. And of course, he came to America when he had the first volumes of Bhagavatam, and he was always pushing for book publishing and book distribution, from day one. And that passion began with Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati. He had so many presses all over the country, and he was putting out so many literatures in many different Indian languages. So that's been a central part of ISKCON because of Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati.
Yeah, and Prabhupada really expanded that. Prabhupada's preaching in so many different languages. I think Prabhupada's preaching in Turkish, Yes.
The pastime of the where he was threatened to be killed, that was in Vrindavan, and when he was having that debate, that's a separate. They didn't
somewhere
threaten.
else.
Yeah, that was in Navadvip.
Midnapur.
Midnapur. So
Okay.
they didn't threaten there. That episode happened in.
When they threatened to kill him, it was Prabhupada's Sannyas Guru Keshav Maharaj who dressed himself as Bhaktisiddhanta,
Yeah.
and Bhaktisiddhanta was sent away.
Yeah, they look quite similar.
Yeah, they look quite similar.
All right, so all the devotees could try to imprint that fact. And Midnapur was where they had the
debate.
Brahmin debate.
Yeah, yeah.
And Vrindavan is where
There's another
threatened.
revolutionary Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakura dressed up as suit and pant and took somebody's Rolls Royce car. He went to Radhakund. He said, I don't see any Babajis and sadhus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a
Brahman, the debate, that's recorded in a book.
yeah.
Somebody was taking notes because there's no tape
Brahmano
recorders.
Vaishnav or something. Right?
Yeah, Brahman or Vaishnav, yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing. There's that Bhaktisiddhanta Vaibhav section of, in the book, but Bhakti Vikash is quoting Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakura, how Bhaktisiddhanta was doing Vrindavan Parikrama, and he was saying, oh yeah, I hardly see any Vaishnavas here. It's like, oh, well. I mean, Prabhupada said similar thing. He said, our Srila Prabhupada said a similar thing. He said, oh, Vrindavan's full of Mayavadis. Okay. It's quite interesting,
Yeah, they were doing Harinam in Vrindavan, and they would and the temple authorities had closed the temples, and they were throwing rocks.
Yeah, throwing rocks.
At the devotees. That's in the
Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakura's time. Apparently, they had some devotees who were born in Brahmin families. Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati had some disciples born in Brahmin families, and then they went to some of the temples in Vrindavan and started preaching to the priests, like, why are you doing this? You know, why are you throwing rocks, this and that? And some of the temples after that, they opened, you know. But anyways, but yes, still, they're throwing rocks. I mean, that's like, really. There's the one I wanted to mention, a short one about Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakura. He went to a particular city to attend the grand opening of a temple. And then he noticed that one of the brahmacharis were missing, which, you know, you can imagine how many people. You know, India, when you have a celebration, there's a lot of people coming. So a lot of temple residents, a lot of guests, but he noticed this brahmachari was missing. And then he called the temple managers over and said, "Oh, where's that brahmachari?" And then the manager said, "Well, there was something said or some type of, you know, in the air, or maybe something happened where he was associated with a neighboring woman. You know, he's a brahmachari." So that was mentioned to him, and he became very discouraged and this and that, and he left. And he's somewhere in the city. We don't know where he is. And then Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati said, "Well, go find him." He said, we're not going to have this celebration until he comes here." And then devotees were saying, "Okay, well, how are we supposed to figure that out? You know, where it's a big city." So anyways, devotees were searching. And then eventually one devotee, he remembered how this brahmachari, his father was like a watch fixer, and so he remembered that. And then he said, "Oh, well, you know, maybe he's there." And so he went, and that brahmachari was there at the store, you know, fixing the watches, this and that. And then he told him, you know, "Guru Maharaj wants you to come." So then he came, and they had but it was very sweet, you know, Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakura, thinking of that brahmachari. So.
Once Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakura was in Janmastan, they were holding a festival, I think installing deities or something. It was raining, and for several days. He had a desire to make sweet rice and all that. So he was wondering what to do. Nobody was able to get hold of those days. So then some person, because he had that intense desire, somebody showed up, gave him some milk, and so they could have the festival.
Nice. Okay. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakura ki jai.
For those who are in the vicinity of the temple or in the temple, we have a Pushpanjali at 10 minutes to 12. 10 to 12.
Okay.